What's going on, people? Myke C-Town here with another episode of Out of My Element, where typically you guys get to pick the albums that I review, which is powered by my patrons. So if you want to become a patron and be able to suggest albums that I actually check out for this series, make sure you click that link down there. But yeah, this is actually going to be a special, different kind of video. So what this comes from is a lot of people were asking me if I was going to review the new Slipknot album, and the answer was no. And it's not because I didn't like them, it's not because I hated the album, I hadn't even heard the album. I'm not a fan of Slipknot, never have been. I've never been a fan of any nu metal band, with the exception of Stained, which I've said before that I liked Stained for like a month or two. I don't know why. And I like Deftones. And yes, Deftones was a nu metal band. Get over it. But I missed the whole wave of this nu metal stuff. By the time Korn was popular and the whole nu metal thing was taking off, this was like 97 or 98. And by that time, I was already listening to extreme metal. So I was already obsessed with bands like Emperor and Morbid Angel and Satyricon and Deicide and whatever else. I wanted nothing to do with bands that were rapping over heavy riffs. Again, with the exception of Rage Against the Machine and Downset. For whatever reason, I loved both of those bands. I could get into that, but that's probably a whole other video. But whenever I thought about nu metal fans, the first thing that came to mind were like big jeans, wallet chains, crustaches, and those necklaces made of the little metal balls. I don't know if you guys remember those. And meth. I'd actually heard Slipknot before because I was at a show and someone was handing out cassette singles, or ca-singles as we called them back then, for their song Heretic Anthem. And I took one, popped it in the car, and I actually thought that song was okay. But for whatever reason, I never listened to the entire album. So until now, I'd never listened to a full Slipknot album. So I thought it would be an interesting idea to kind of check out one of their albums and make one of these videos. I put up a poll on Patreon asking if I should listen to the self-titled one first or their album Iowa first, because I saw the homie Fantano put up that Iowa is a classic. But yeah, the self-titled album won, so, you know, I do what you guys tell me to do. So the album starts off with a loop of Corey Hurst, which was one of Charles Manson's followers. It's from a documentary about Charles Manson. The whole thing, I think, is sick. It's a cool way to start an album, I guess. But and it rolls into the song Sick, which was very clever. Here comes the pain. But yeah, I was feeling pain immediately the second this shit started, because the recording sounded like dog shit. It was mostly loud ass drums, and the kick drums sounded like it was made out of computer paper. And when that fucking turntable comes in, no, I didn't like this at all. The riffs were super weak to me, and the way Corey Taylor approaches the vocals was also really bad. To me, it almost sounded like he was rapping the way he was formulating his lines, but he was doing it with like a screaming voice. It just all came across as very corny to me. The next song, Eilis, opens up with a record scratch, so I was automatically expecting the worst. It's here that I see that the drummer is definitely doing work. At this point, Joey's drums are really the only part of the album that I'm actually enjoying. The guitars are, again, really weak. There's no punch. They're not heavy. And then they're so far in the background of the song that I just can't get into them. And yeah, again, this singer, insane. Am I the only motherfucker with a brain? I'm hearing voices, but all they do is complain. How many times have you wanted to kill? Everything and everyone say you do it, but never will. This seriously sounds like some shit that I'd see on a 13-year-old's live journal. And when he starts singing at the end, it's just awful to me. Like the singing with the wee guitars and the record scratching, it's just so bad. The next song is Wait and Bleed, and this is the song that I'd heard so much about. And maybe I'd heard this back in the 90s, I don't really remember, but the way it starts with his singing, oh man. It's at this point that I actually thought about scrapping this whole idea, because I couldn't think of anything positive to say about this album so far. Once again, cool drumming, weak guitars, and the singing to me is fucking atrocious. It's just really whiny. And I dig whiny singers. You guys know I love Morrissey. And I came up on a lot of 90s emo, but this just sounds really out of place. And the lyrics, again, they're just really corny to me. You haven't learned a thing, I haven't changed a thing, the flesh was in my bones, the pain was always free. I've read that the song is about suicide, but to me it came across as a person kind of talking about having multiple personalities and he's trying to come to terms with this and figure out what's going on. Or it's about suicide, doesn't really matter, I guess. To me, I didn't like it either way. Spit It Out. I believe this was another really popular song from this album, and he's straight up rapping, but in a really lame metal voice, and the clean vocals on the chorus are just really cheesy. No Lie may be the worst song on this album to me. I literally laughed when he was rapping. This takes me back to the absolute worst parts of the 90s. This song just screams trailer park to me. Some shirtless dude with a mullet fixing his pickup truck while his extremely younger brothers, who all have Kool-Aid mustaches, by the way, are just kind of like jumping around and like push moshing next to him. This is a scene that you'd see quite often when you lived in the sticks, as I used to. My freedom is best, whole country's on house arrest. No. By the time this was nearing the end of the album, I was just so drained. There wasn't a single moment of this album that I actually enjoyed. I found this to be excruciatingly terrible. The riffs were incredibly boring. The vocals were really trite to me. The only thing impressive on this album were Joey Jordison's drums, but that wasn't enough to keep me entertained by this album. The fact that we could barely hear the guitars was a huge issue for me, and the fact that so many people find this album to be so heavy, while the guitars sound like they were recorded in a motel bathroom and barely mixed in, it's just mind-boggling to me. The album came across as them kind of reinventing the album Roots by Sepultura by just playing it a bit faster, and Roots is actually the album by Sepultura where they lost me as a fan, so it's not really a positive comparison. It's just that that's what I hear when I turn this on. Now, I don't think me disliking this album is a true testament to the quality of the music. I think people's enjoyment of this really depends on when they were getting into this stuff. If you were really young when this music was coming out, it totally makes sense that it appealed to you, because to me it screams kind of angsty young person, but more angsty suburban young person. Like, I'm mad that my allowance wasn't enough to get me a new pair of Abercrombie jeans, so I'm gonna call my mom a bitch and talk about how much I can beat my dad's ass. So because I was a little bit confused by the appeal of this, I even watched a YouTube video where there were a bunch of people talking about the importance of this album. And it helped me a little bit to understand what people found that was so interesting about this. But some of the shit that people were saying in this were just fucking crazy. Monty Connor, who worked for Nuclear Blast, he said, and I quote, "Corey Taylor has a voice more brutal than just about anyone you've heard in metal prior. Coming from an average person, shit like this would get you an automatic disqualification for discussing metal. It's fine that you like Corey Taylor and you like his voice, but this ridiculous hyperbole just turns me off. So you worked for Nuclear Blast. So you're telling me that you've never heard any death metal bands before this? Like, you've never heard Morbid Angel, you've never heard Suffocation, you've never heard Napalm Death. But you're saying that Corey Taylor's voice is more brutal than just about anything you've heard from metal prior. All right. I'm not saying that they weren't hugely influential or really important as far as popularizing metal. One of the guys in the video said it was like Beatlemania, the way these guys took off. And he's so right. They moved metal into the mainstream, most definitely. So if that's something that you're interested in, cool. You know, I'm not really interested in that. I was fine with metal being in the underground. I didn't really care either way, but I was okay with metal kind of retaining that whole rebellious attitude by staying away from what would be considered commercial. Someone else said that they were the catalyst for metalcore and deathcore, and I can definitely see that point. Frank Gondola from Metal Injection said they were a death metal band with new metal influences. Bullshit. All right. What death metal bands had riffs like this? And that's a genuine question. If there were death metal bands that were sounding like this that I just completely never got on my radar, let me know. The only thing about this album to me that said death metal were the drums. They're a nu metal band, and they sound like a nu metal band, just a heavier, more aggressive nu metal band. And it's okay to admit that you like nu metal. You know, fuck people who try to make you feel bad for it to the point where you feel like you have to add these kind of almost qualifier statements. It's silly, you know. If you're a fan of nu metal, be a fan of nu metal. So this whole video idea that I had as far as checking out Slipknot albums and maybe other nu metal albums just out of curiosity, it didn't really start off too well. Originally, I had planned on maybe checking out some other bands from the genre just for the fun of it, just to say that I've delved into it, but I don't know, man. I can say that I finally listened to an entire Slipknot album twice even, and I can officially say that I'm not a fan. It's not for me, but I'm not gonna put people down for liking it. I know that's a common metal trope where dudes think that they have to shit on people for liking other types of metal because it makes them feel better about the metal that they listen to. It's fucking stupid. You like what you like, and you should continue liking what you like, and someone else not liking music that you like, it shouldn't be an issue for you if you're even remotely self-confident. But this video was all about just my take on this stuff. Will I ever listen to this album again? Absolutely not. Will I maybe give a different Slipknot album a try in the future? Will I ever listen to maybe Iowa at some point? Maybe, but I don't know. If I listen to it and I dislike it as much as this, then I'm not gonna bother making another video about it. Like, just doing repeated negative videos just doesn't really interest me. But maybe, you know, we'll see. You never know what might happen in the future. But for now, this album is a no for me. This band, for the most part, is a no for me. But yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comment section down there. If you were a big fan or are a big fan of nu metal, what was it that attracted you to albums specifically like this? And yeah, that's it. As usual, thank you for living, thank you for loving, thank you for being you. And I'll see you guys next time. All right, peace out, boy.